Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Background noise. All video conference participants will be joining the meeting in listen-only mode, and you will be muted during the discussion. WETA welcomes comments from the public. A public comment period will be set aside after each discussion period and will be accepted in person and by video conference. Video conference participants wishing to speak are requested to email your name and item number you'd like to comment on to boardofdirectors@watertransit.org. If you're unable to send an email, you will be given an opportunity to speak on the item after those who have previously signed up. So welcome everyone, and let me start by thanking Stephen Miller and the team from Hanson Bridget for hosting us today here in downtown San Francisco. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it very much. And I guess I'll start with just some general comments. I think sometimes we spend these meetings going over the kind of the nitty-gritty of what makes the San Francisco Bay Ferry operate and be successful and take care of passengers and make sure that things are working properly. But just to back up for a minute, sometimes it's important to think about the big picture of what we're trying to do here. And I think it's fair to say in the Bay Area at this moment, I think there's a lot of thinking about what the Bay Area stands for and what our future is about and how we're going to get from here to there. We've got continuing challenges in our downtown areas in terms of employee return to work. We've got public safety issues. We've got some other problems, economic issues that are sort of inherent when lots of change is going on. And I think while we have those challenges, I think Seamus Murphy will talk about the state of the San Francisco Bay Ferry event that we did, but it's a time for opportunity and change too. This is one of those, it feels to me like one of those moments when people are going to be more open, maybe thinking about how we do things differently and how we can do things better. And the creation of this system really around a little over 25 years ago was built around the notion of making the waterfront of the Bay Area accessible and approachable and usable to many, many more people. And by making public transit available to areas that where it just didn't exist and where it didn't come together well. And so a lot has been accomplished over that quarter century period, but it's not just about transporting people who want to get from Oakland into San Francisco for their job. It's a much bigger mission than that, and I think it's a more important mission as we grapple with climate change and we think about sea level rise, and we're thinking about how the future of the Bay Area really shapes up. It's a time to really commit ourselves to the mission that we can bring more people into this temperate climate where they create far less greenhouse gases, use less air conditioning and less heat, live a better life, and create more of an opportunity for people to live and play and work near each other, and not have force people to commute long multi-hour distances and so forth. So land use is the heart and soul of any good region, and this isn't just a transportation system that adapts to what the land use pattern is. It's an organization that's really defined around creating the opportunity for the future land use. And I think the more we think that way and act that way, more successful we'll be. We'll have more passengers and we'll have a more successful SFA ferry system, but we'll also have a more successful, well-heeled and well-honed Bay Area. I'm excited about that. I think it's been a great experience to be part of this board and working with this team and incredible staff and so forth. So as we are now really getting into 2024, it's a lot, I think, with elections happening around, there's a lot on people's minds about what the possibilities are for the future. And we should be right in the center of that. We took a little flack from one MTC commissioner a couple of weeks ago who said, maybe that he didn't say maybe, he said ferries are, not the most efficient form of transit and therefore, should be put in a secondary mode when it comes to transit in the Bay Area. And we're responding to all that, but I don't think it bears too much response. It wasn't really a very well thought out attack on a system which has a 99% customer satisfaction rate, which has attracted on a percentage basis more people back to use than any other transit system in the region, and generally provides the kind of opportunity I was talking about. We can really create a better, a greater Bay Area. So with that, let me turn it over to my vice chair for her comments, and we'll go down the line.
Thank you, Chair Wonderman. I thought that was very prophetic, actually. So thank you for sharing that perspective. I do not have anything nearly so poetic to add, so I will pass it down the line to my dear colleague.
And let me say that one of the things we get to celebrate today is the reappointment of a very, very dedicated public servant, Director Jessica Alba, officially reappointed by the Speaker Robert Rivas of California to serve another term here on the board. And we're really glad you've made such great contributions. Great to have you back. So why don't you say a few words about why you decided you want to a little bit more?
Well, thank you very much, Chair Windeman. Yes, the opportunity came to reapply for this position, and without any hesitation, I submitted my application and reached out to a number of stakeholders and my fellow board members for support. And I am very excited to be in this second period for another up to 6 years. We're just shaking our heads here at the number of years that you're appointed for. Because what happens in the next 6 years, we have no idea. But I couldn't imagine being on a more productive and collaborative regional board than this one. It's a fantastic, rewarding assignment to be part of. And the progress that the agency has made over the past few years it's incredible. I am so proud to be part of the system and the progress that we're making in regards to decarbonization, regional seamless transit, equity, workforce development, emergency response, and just being here for what the future of the Bay Area will be. Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Director Delgado.
Yeah, unlike my colleague and chair, Mr. Winterman, I absolutely think the MTC commissioner deserves a response to the article he sent out. But that's what makes Jim way more mature than I am. I was disheartened when I read it because for several reasons. One, besides it being completely inaccurate, I know how hard the staff and our board has worked to make the ferries a affordable, productive way to commute across the bay, and how much work has gone into that. So I don't think MTC commissioner should use a chair to sit up there and come after, a part of the service that he actually represented at one time and represents. And I just want to, I'm going to use a positive, end it on a positive note, because I know how hard this staff has worked to be a team player with the other, transit agencies, especially when it came to having sharing pots of money and things like that. In fact, I took the approach, at the time, like, hey, why should we, at this point, we worked hard for ARM through this and that. And Executive Director Seamus Murphy explained to me that, playing in the same sandbox with everybody is what you're supposed to do. I like to throw sand at other kids sometimes, but I just want to point out that I think that, we've taken the high road here over and over again. And I thought that op-ed was completely distasteful and not fair. And I run into that commissioner every once in a while on, some of the streets around here. So I can't wait to run into him again so I can express my displeasure with what he brought up here. So I was going to say that before you said anything about it. So I just really want to give kudos to the board and the staff and the road we've been taking. And I think it shows, because the ferry is the best way to get across the bay, in my opinion. And we've made that affordable for everybody to use. So that's it. I'll get off of it now, but thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw that article and I was, I'm not familiar with that commissioner, but I was like, wow, he is so out of touch with what we are really doing here. I mean, I'm just so excited to be a part of this organization. And this is a board that I have not been involved in an organization that is doing such exciting and aspirational work as this organization is doing. And so, frankly, his comments were irrelevant because they were so out of touch. And so I was going along the lines of other things aspirational. I was attended the Solano Economic Development Corporation's annual stakeholders breakfast this morning. And they had a panel discussion about California Forever, which, no surprise to anybody, is controversial on many fronts. But it was just interesting to hear perspectives from all sides, and transportation was at front and center on a lot of those conversations, and the ferry was mentioned multiple times. So I think it is something that we should, just kind of keep our eyes on. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Dew. So take it away, Director Murphy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wonderman. Thanks, directors. Couple of items to report on before I get into the executive director's report. Just a couple of announcements here. Number one, I want to welcome Elisa Silvera to the team. Elisa is our administrative specialist. And she comes to us from the private sector small business in Oakland, where she had a number of increasing responsibilities over her years there, was promoted several times, and she's been here a few weeks, and we can understand why now that she's been here just for a couple of weeks. It's obvious that she's a high performer and she's going to be able to take on a lot of progressive responsibilities here as well. Also want to recognize our President of Blue and Gold Fleet, Pat Murphy, for being named President of the Passenger Vessel Association. We were in Portland for the Meritrans conference when that appointment happened, and had the opportunity to share a lot about what we're doing as an agency on the decarbonization front. Chad Mason and I presented at different panels on that topic. And Lauren Ghilardi, as usual, chaired the Public Ferry Operators Coalition, which is turning into quite the little advocacy organization. It's growing and becoming more active, so always good to see. Also want to report that our own, or Hanson Bridget's own, I should say, Catherine Sue, is not here today. You may have noticed she's at home with young Reese Sue, who's about a month early, but you couldn't tell from the photos. All the pounds and all the ounces are there for sure. So congratulations, Sarah. And I'm going to just skip ahead before we get to the Alameda Bay Pass. I'll welcome Martha up in a little bit to talk about that. But just to build on what you were saying in your comments, directors, about the MTC comments and the State of the San Francisco Bay Ferry event. That was a great event. It was an opportunity for us to really thank our strongest supporters and advocates for the work that they're doing, and also get them messaged so that they can share all of the things that we're doing with others and speak as advocates on our behalf. We're building, we have a really good coalition building effort that's underway, and we're working on ways to activate that coalition. And I think even though the comments from Commissioner Josefowicz were inaccurate, meritless, it's an opportunity for us to activate that coalition, correct the record with people that may have heard that information, read that information, make them understand that we are doing great things, and that in a lot of ways the service that was here when Commissioner Josefowicz was on the WETA Board of Directors is very different from compared to the service that we have now and that we'll have in the future. We've made great progress on the greenhouse gas emissions front. We've made great progress on the customer satisfaction front, on the ridership return front. All of these things we're trying to lead the way and really demonstrating that we're leading the way. And we're going to continue to do that and tell that story as loudly as we can. The next item, I guess, Alameda Bay Pass update. This is some really good news. A lot of potential for WETA ridership to emanate from the institution of the pass, and I'll welcome Arthi up to tell us the latest. The Bay Pass.
Good afternoon, Chair Wonderman, directors. Hope you guys can hear me. Arthi Krubanan, planner at WETA. So I'm here to provide an update on the Clipper Bay Pass program. A quick reminder that phase 1 of the program was launched in fall. Sorry, did I do something? The Clipper Bay Pass phase 1 was launched in fall of 2022 for educational institutions and mid-band housing properties. Now, phase 2 of the program was launched last month, and currently 3 employers are on board, and up to 7 more employers will be joining soon. One of the employers that's part of the phase 2 program is Alameda TMA, and Alameda TMA manages the transportation programs for their employees and residents. And participating in this program gives an opportunity to enhance ferry access, specifically in the seaplane service area. In terms of, it's worth noting that the program is designed similar to phase 1 to be revenue neutral for WETA, and provides the opportunity to attract new ridership and also generate new revenue source. We are encouraging our partners in other service areas to seek opportunities to be part of this program that would benefit their riders. And I think with that, to continue on a positive note, we also have an update on the Clipper Start program. So when the program was launched, we were observing about a monthly average of 400 of riders. And as of last year, we have seen that number has quadrupled to 1,700s. And the program is gaining momentum, and it is promising to see that it aligns with our commitment to reach broader travel market, which was one of our key principles in the recovery program and fare program. With that, I'll answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Board members? Just congratulations. It's a big step forward. Really appreciate the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Arthi. I would just add that the WETA's fare policy, which made our service more accessible to lower income populations. It's really what's led to that increase in the Clipper Start utilization on our service. I think it's safe to say that if we hadn't made the decision to right size our fare structure and make it more aligned with the fares of other transit modes operating in the same corridor, that we wouldn't be seeing the same kind of Clipper Start growth that we're seeing on our system. So it's great to see the ridership diversify on the WETA system. Next, we have made some customer experience enhancements lately that are worth talking about. And so Tom Hall will talk about some of those.
Thank you, Chair Wonderman Board. Just talk about a couple of customer experience enhancements that have come online within the past couple of months. The first, which is really exciting, is real-time terminal displays. This is one of the selling features a little while back when we came to procure a real-time transit information system that would allow us to use GPS trackers on the boats and existing data feed standards to transmit real-time location of our vessels, our predictions for on-time performance, and good mapping tools. This is an example of what our dashboard looks like. So all of the terminals now have working signs that show when the next departure is up to the minute. If there is a service alert, that is displayed on these signs as well. We've also, you can't quite see it on the slide, but on gates E and F in downtown San Francisco, where we have multiple routes operating, we do have queuing indicators on those as well, telling people where to line up. So it's really been a positive improvement. I want to thank Raphael Regan, who couldn't be here today, who really spearheaded this project, along with Blink Tag, one of our consultants, borrowed from the planning team. The second one is a little bit less technical, pretty easy to do, but we're glad we could do it. So we're currently offering free coffee on all of our morning departures, anything before noon on weekdays. Another incentive to get commuters back onto the ferries instead of behind the wheel of their car. We're working with S&P Concessions, who's Blue and Gold's concessionaire, in addition to Blue and Gold Fleet, to be able to provide that stable earns. We're getting good feedback on it. A lot of positive feedback, obviously, great media attention. I think one of the key things that led to that is we didn't just make it a free coffee promotion. We also added a pay it forward element to it, where our riders can probably afford a cup of coffee, most of them. And so if they want to pay that forward, we have QR codes linking to virtual food drives at 2 local food banks, where we've seen a lot of encouraging donations happening over the past couple of months. I think we're about a month in, and we're up around $600 donated by ferry riders, just coming across the free coffee in the morning. So that's been great to see. I think long-term, we agree that restaffing concessions full-time is a really important amenity for our passengers, but we think this is a nice bridge to bring people back to the ferry. With that, happy to answer any questions.
I was going to ask when you'll have Bloody Marys, but I think you answered that. I'll pass it over to the board. Any questions? Yeah, that's really terrific. I think these kinds of things mean a lot to the passengers, and having that signage, that's a really big deal. And I think just keep stepping forward. It's great.
Yeah, the creativity that your team exudes is it's contagious, and I'm so appreciative of the little things. And in addition to also having staff at all levels be involved in these kinds of proposals and figuring out ways to continue to improve and make our experiences even better. It's fantastic. So just keep on doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. So I'm going to ask Chad to come up, and Chad Mason to come up and give us an update on the Main Street Terminal Rehabilitation Project. This one is a pretty big undertaking. I remember when we were planning for the service disruption and we were planning on alternative service that would last for a period of months and would conclude at the end of the year when everything would go perfectly and the project would be done and ready to reopen service. And I said, well, what happens when it's not ready and when we have to extend this alternative service even further? And the team was really confident that that wouldn't happen. And how often does that work out where a project is done on time and exactly as we said it would be delivered? So happy to have Chad tell us where this project is currently and the benefits that the customers will see.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim and Board of Directors. Chad Mason, Senior Planner Project Manager with WETA. I'm just going to give a quick update and overview of where the project is. And I would first like to start off by thanking our team. First of all, the City of Alameda. Manson Construction Company was our construction contractor. GHD was our engineer of record. Cowie was WETA's engineer. Jacobs was our construction manager. Dudek was our permitting specialist. And I'd also like to thank Blue and Goldfleet, who's been really instrumental throughout the process, but also very recently when we converted to operations on this project, which occurred on January 2nd. And that's a major milestone. This took more than 4 years of effort to get it to the finish line. From the environmental review, permitting, construction procurement, final design, and construction, and all the issues in between all of that. So this project was primarily completed or implemented for seismic safety, operational improvements, technology improvements, and future electrification. I'll start with, I have a few slides here, and really the biggest bonus here is the seismic safety, and you can see right here, this pile on the corner on this platform is a 48-inch steel pipe pile that gets the facility off of that historic craneway there. We're not responsible for that structure or the integrity of it, and it posed a serious risk in the event of a major earthquake. So we are now off of that structure. We have a new abutment on the land side, and we are very seismically sound. Here's a few more perspectives of the new bridge. You can see on the end there, we're just above that historic craneway. Here's some images inside the new bridge. We are working on some final construction efforts, as always, the bits at the end. We're doing new lighting within all this to have a much improved experience for riders in the evening and safety. We have a new awning that was installed last week. And we have all new life rings and other fire extinguishers, other safety features throughout. And another big operational improvement here is we have the big Ocean Guard donut fenders. Those were not part of the facility before, and that really facilitates the vessels coming in and out without bumping the terminal, and it's just a smoother process in and out and faster. With that, I'll turn it over to Tom.
So stepping in for Raphael Regan again, who really managed the rideshare mitigation program. Thanks to Mike Garrity and the planning team for setting that up. And basically we put out the call to South San Francisco riders from Alameda who are going to be the most impacted by the 10-week closure to get the word out to them. And it was really easy to get the word out to them. There were not too many of them. I think we reached all of them and distributed vouchers to just about all of them. And of those 43 vouchers distributed, 26 of those folks actually used the voucher. Some folks used it just twice. Some folks used it up to 60 times over the about, I think it's 48 days of actual service. So they used it pretty frequently, which was nice. 391 total rideshare trips from the island of Alameda to Jack London Square for the Oakland Ferry Terminal or back or the opposite direction. We were able to geofence both areas to make sure that only rides that were originating and arriving to those spots were able to get the subsidy. We also time limited it. So it was just Monday through Friday and timed to the actual departures to South San Francisco in the morning and in the evening so that people couldn't use it just to get a free ride to lunch in Jack London Square. So as I said, 391 trips over the 48 days. average trips per user, that comes out to about 15. That was about the average trips per day as well, pretty close to that. And when you consider the round trip, it's a little less than 10 people per day used it. Total cost of the agency was $5,600, and the cost per ride was $14. So overall, pretty smooth experience on WETA's side once we got the program set up and running, got it through legal review, of course, because we were able to reach exactly the people that we needed. So happy to answer any questions about how that.
How did we do on the complaint side during that period?
I think most of the complaints that we heard were heard at the board meeting where we discussed it. And once we were able to get your blessing for the mitigation program, and we were able to get that spun up and have something to offer to people, they dissipated. We've actually seen something we feared before, which is we're starting to get more frequent requests for weekend Alameda seaplane service, because that was such a nice offering during that 10 weeks out of necessity. No, the schedule wasn't quite as good as it is now out of Main Street. So overall, there was not a whole lot of pushback once we were able to share the mitigation plan.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, amazing to think, about the work that's been done on new terminals and existing terminals over the last few years. We have Richmond, downtown, of course, Seaplane, now Main Street, and then we have Vallejo coming up, reconfiguration project there. So there's a lot of work happening to update and add terminals to this system. And kudos to the team for getting those projects done. And I think the goal of minimizing the impacts on riders, we called this a pilot program, working with TNC to try and do that. And it worked out. It was a small pilot, but a successful one. And I think something that we can replicate on other parts of the system. And we'll talk a little bit about that with more report coming up. But first, let me ask Lauren to come up. We have a state legislative update, and we wanted to call out the regional transportation funding measure since that bill was introduced, and there's quite a lot of activity happening.
MTC approved putting enabling legislation for a future regional transportation revenue measure approving the process to develop enabling legislation to put a regional transportation measure on the ballot. And that enabling legislation, it allows the measure to actually be put on the ballot, but it does not include anything such as like an expenditure plan, which would talk about categories of spending and amounts. As a reminder, transit agencies last year, transit agencies and advocates worked tirelessly to get the state to help fund transit due to the loss of ridership from COVID. And as transit agencies had stopped or had ran out of their COVID relief funding, they were facing operating deficits in the next 5 years. So the advocates worked to get a transportation package from the state to help for the short term, so for about 2 years. But the plan had always been to develop a regional transportation measure to fund transit agencies for the longer term. So that would be where I think they're talking about putting it on the ballot in 2026. And any regional measure would have to generate at least $1 billion to be able to solve the operating deficits for some of the largest operators in the region. However, in discussions over the last several months, transit advocates are asking for more. They don't want just to plug the budget hole. They want to make transit better. So I think the transit advocates are aiming for about $2 billion out of this transportation measure. The total amount has not been decided yet. There's a lot of stuff in flux, but right now what we're working on is getting the legislation together so it can be able to be put on the ballot in 2026. And then for the next 2 years, we'll be working on expenditure plan development. The strategy that MTC has taken has been to have really flexible enabling legislation. We're still having some effects from COVID. People are still working from home. Commute patterns are still in flux. So they want to have a lot of flexibility in that enabling legislation so that we can, change directions over the next year and a half before it goes onto the ballot. Some of the categories that the recommended core elements for the enabling legislation includes general categories for expenditures. Those include transit transformation, which would sustain and expand transit service, accelerate the transformation action plan strategies that were out of the Blue Ribbon Task Force, and then also help fund zero emission transit transitions. That would be the category that would help support transit operations. Then there's also safe streets, connectivity, and climate resilience are the other categories. Other general structures of the enabling legislation that MTC is putting together, it will also include strengthening MTC's network management role in certain areas, so including fare payment and integration, schedule coordination, mapping and wayfinding, real-time information, and then any other kind of customer-facing operating policies that would benefit from a regional approach. It will also authorize MTC to put it on the ballot in either all 9 counties or a subset of those counties. And then it could also be put on the ballot either directly by MTC, which would require a 2/3 vote, or it could be done via qualified voter initiative, which would be a simple majority. So there's so many different options for each of these areas, and they're trying to write all this flexibility into the enabling legislation so that we can determine, as time moves forward, what is the best path at that moment in time. The other thing, it will be 2026 at the earliest. It could go later, and then it will also be subject to no sunset date in the statute. And that will allow them to put subsequent ballot measures on the ballot in case this is unsuccessful. And then they're looking at a variety of different revenue measures that could include sales tax, income tax, payroll tax, parcel tax, vehicle registration surcharge, vehicle miles traveled fee. And there's concerns with each of these approaches. And this is something that we're going to have to work out during the stakeholder process. I think there's issues about, what does the voter, what are they going to be able to withstand in terms of, their willingness to support something like this? Is it progressive? Is it regressive? Does it impact a certain community or group of people more than others? So those are all the things folks are worried about. And then there's also an intent to consider the geographic balance in terms of the funding distribution. So Senator Wiener has actually sponsored this as a spot bill in SB 925. And it's going to be amended to incorporate MTC as the sponsor with a first hearing in early March. And then MTC has been working with Wiener's office to get a lot of background information. They've reached out to different transit operators to have individual meetings. We had one with them about 2 weeks ago. MTC's also developed a staff level, staff level transportation revenue measure working group to help develop ideas around the expenditure plan. And then also they are working on a higher level executive leadership group to help guide that steering group. And then I think that is pretty much it. I think the biggest thing is that we're on that staff level group, and I think we'll be fighting to be on that steering level group as well. So we're monitoring the conversations and we're making sure that we have a seat at the table. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thanks, Lauren. That is a lot. Questions?
Questions, but just thank you for being there and investing in all of that. It's very timely and important. So, there's a lot of knowledge you just shared. You can tell there's a lot of complexity. So thank you for being there.
Definitely.
Excellent.
I think the only other thing to add to the state legislative report, and I'm not sure it made it in time for the text of the report, but we have our bill was introduced, right, by Assembly Member Lori Wilson, who also happens to be the Transportation Policy Committee Chair this legislative session, and that's the bill to exempt the procurement of any zero emission vessels from the state sales tax. So significant benefit for us, and we are going to be working hard to pass that bill. With that, I will hand it over to Joe while he's coming up to cover the monthly operations ridership and recovery report. And I know he has some others that are going to be chiming in on this specifically to talk about some of the reliability challenges that we had with the weeks. Thanks.
Afternoon, Director. This is Joe Ramey, WETA Operations. I'm just going to give you a quick update on system performance for 2023. So overall, SFA ferries on-time performance and service reliability remain consistently high month to month throughout 2023. On-time performance averaged 96.8% system-wide in 2023, which is excellent. Service reliability averaged 99.4% system-wide in 2023, with roughly 49,000 trips provided compared to only 276 trips canceled. Canceled trips representing just 0.6% of total scheduled trips for 2023. As noted in the board report, in 2023, San Francisco Bay Ferry had similar, if not higher levels of on-time performance and reliability compared to other public ferry operators, including Golden Gate, Washington, Kitsap Transit, Staten Island, New York Ferry, and Massachusetts Bay Ferries. In 2023, SF Bay Ferry also had higher levels of on-time performance compared to other regional public transit operators, including BART, Muni, and AC Transit, who had on-time performance levels ranging from 73 to 83% compared to our 97% roughly. So just a quick update without taking any questions. With that, I'll also turn it over with Tim to talk about some of the vessel maintenance issues we've been facing in the recent months.
I'm sorry, before you do, so I know you're not talking about the period of this past weekend storms, but I know that had a disruption. How are the complaints? What is the tone and tenor?
That's a little bit more on the Tom's side of the Tom's wheelhouse, but I think they've been moderate.
Great question. So Sunday was the big storm event. We were able to get a couple of landings into San Francisco in the morning. Those captains relayed back to the operations management team at Blue and Gold that that was a bad idea, and they should not continue to do that. And so we suspended service across the system temporarily in hopes that the storm would calm down based on the forecasts. We sort of had a false start in the afternoon where it looked like we could. We landed one boat around 3 o'clock, I believe, 3:30. It was still bad, and the wind was the biggest issue by far. And the abnormal direction of the wind was Tim can probably speak to this better than me. Actual operation side, in terms of the complaints, no one was trying to travel on Sunday, and so that was minor. We learned a lot on what we can do to better proactively message in advance, and we've developed a plan that's refining some of our previous plans that we had extreme weather for how we can continue to update the public in advance that there could be disruptions and there are other options to go. Thankfully, this happened on a weekend when our demand was going to be.
Yeah, thank you for that. The wind was pretty incredible. It just caused me to wonder if, as you're working through your public comms, as you just mentioned, but more broadly, if there's a like a public safety element that's crossing your mind. So in my business, we have a safety before service is our kind of catch-all. And I just wondered, because there's a big difference between there's a repair and maintenance issue versus there's a for your safety issue.
Yeah, that's a great point. We had a discussion this Seamus and Pat Murphy were involved in that conversation about proactively suspending service once we see that the conditions are such so that we're not putting any vessels, captains, deckhands, or passengers in harm's way if the conditions warrant it. So I think we'll be looking at what the parameters are to do that. Obviously, we don't weather is an art, not a science, and so we don't want to proactively suspend service and then it's blue skies and people wonder where the ferry is. So it's a tricky balance that we're going to continue to flesh out a little bit. And one other thing about that is Lexi Matsui on our team has come up with some ideas on how we can visually message to people, even when it's not stormy outside, that these are the factors that go into when a trip is canceled. Here's how those decisions are made. Here's what makes it tricky to operate a ferry in San Francisco Bay in certain wind events. Even if the wind is not particularly strong, if it's coming from a certain direction, it's just really tough at a couple of places. So trying to educate the public about what factors go into it.
Yeah, and I would imagine the tides too. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember now the dashboard you showed us, but I don't recall that it had a space for comments. For you to input comments in the dashboard.
So there is an override feature. I got a lot of use out of that on Sunday. I was going in and overriding. You can do a blanket override, or you can insert messages as well. So when we had Main Street closed, we inserted a message onto the seaplane sign saying weekend service is here, basically. So we do have that function.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom.
Can I ask a quick related question? So we're talking about on-time performance and reliability. We have mechanical or technical reasons, but we also have weather events. Do you track whether it's a weather-related on-time performance or if it's a mechanical?
Yeah, so as of January 2023, our new system Swiftly has those inputs. So dispatch is able to input like what the cause is. So mechanical, and they can get specific, they have just like a note input. So yeah, they do track by type.
Yeah, I think over the next decade, we're gonna see an increase in weather event
Yeah,
related
right.
performance and reliability issues.
Right.
And so being able to track that and communicate that
Right.
might also be just valuable to riders as well as the board and any stakeholder.
Absolutely. And that's on our radar. And that's something that Tom had alluded to, but we're trying to incorporate that into our latest website and app development as well.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Tim Hanner is Manager of Operations and Engineering for WETA. I'm here to talk about some of the reliability issues that we've had over the course of the month. We gave you a great picture of what we ended at 2023. What we did not discuss is the issues that we had starting in the beginning of the year. And our reliability has not been great over the last month, and it has not met our standards or our expectations. So we need to do better. And we know that as a staff, and we're working on that. We currently have 11 boats in service Monday through Friday. That's required to do our day-to-day service, with 6 of them as spares. Not all those boats can go into every service, but generally speaking, we have 6 spares currently right now. 5 of those 6 as of today are out of service and cannot run due to unplanned maintenance. One of those vessels is currently undergoing a Coast Guard certification that's scheduled and is routine. Out of those 5 boats, we have a repair plan for those 5, and we'll talk a little bit about that with not getting into the details of each vessel. But we do anticipate 3 of those 5 vessels being back in service by early next week. We're on a wave of maintenance and repair issues, everything ranging from gearbox failures to main engine shutdowns to electrical issues. Some of the things that we've done to either speed up these repairs or provide more resources to Blue and Gold is, me and Jeff Powell, the Minister of Maintenance for WTA, is actively working with the Blue and Gold team daily now, just to provide the resources they need. That includes additional staff. We've currently brought in several vendors, one of which is we've utilized 6 bay shipping yacht machinists to assist Blue and Gold staff to speed up these repairs. We've also utilized 2 different shipyards for 2 repairs that we would normally do at our facilities. One to assist the engineers that we currently have on staff at Blue and Gold, and to just speed up those repairs. That being Bay Ship and Yacht and Mare Island Dry Dock, which was good because we haven't been in contract with them in a while. So it's been great having another resource for the team to utilize. We've also, yesterday, we flew in an electrical specialist from San Diego to help us on some of the issues that our staff's been struggling with on one of the Gemini class vessels. They actually have a repair in place that we just heard about an hour ago, so we're hoping to get that boat in service by tomorrow morning. As I stated, 3 of those 5 vessels that are out for unplanned maintenance are scheduled to be back early next week. 2 of the vessels that are out, the Argo and Vela, are both requiring a gearbox replacement, and those are going to be out for at least 1 month. With the 3 vessels returned to our fleet, we feel like our reliability is going to get better, and we'll be able to provide a more normal, stable service. I'm here to answer any questions the board might have.
So what do the reliability numbers look like for January? How far does it dip?
So it's interesting because the reliability data, most of those service disruptions were the week of January 8th. So it was all kind of concentrated in that first week with kind of a chaotic maintenance situation happening in that week. We kind of recovered quickly. Running the numbers, preliminary numbers that we have, so the on-time performance is still 97.2%. So of the trips that we ran on time. Cancellation rate was roughly double the yearly average. So instead of 0.6% of total trips, it was 1.3%. So there was a total of 54 trips canceled, and in the last 3 months, I think we had like 8 to 10 a month. So roughly double.
Based on this experience, are there lessons learned and that you're taking and then inspecting, other vessels, or how is this? What are the lessons learned and how are we taking them forward?
Yeah, lots of lessons. So what we're doing is root cause analysis. It's pretty standard. Two of the classes of our boats, and I spoke to the board a couple months about this. There's some known issues on the gearboxes and the engines on two of the classes of our boats. We have a repair plan in place for both of those, and now it's getting those out in place, getting the parts in, getting it scheduled. It's kind of a snowball effect. As we're having boats break down, we're unable to take boats out of service to make the repairs we need, and so we're trying to balance that. Another thing that we're doing is we're in contract with Elliott Bay Design Group. They're a large engineering firm in Seattle. They have a staff member that is going to be conducting a third-party audit of our engineering, of Blue and Gold's engineering, and of WETA's. They're going to start at the end of the month. They're currently wrapping up a similar study with New York Ferry. And so while we would like to get this done a little bit sooner, we thought that person would just fit in great. And we could also learn some lessons from what they've gained from New York City's ferry service. But in addition to that, we're kind of getting down back to basics with Blue and Gold, like kind of reviewing everything, looking at training, looking at staffing levels. I mean, we're trying to do everything we can. Right now, it's just the amount of repairs that are needed. It's the magnitude of it is just, it's a resourcing issue. We just don't have enough people right now to make quick repairs on all these vessels, and that's why we're bringing in outside help.
If you have anything to add.
A couple of vessels that have continuing problems, whether it be in the gearbox or not. And then it's, so you can't just like sum it up on generally each boat's got certain problems. Some are electrical, some in the gearbox, some in the engine, some are known problems, some are things that came up. Normally the things that would come up, we'd be able to address pretty quickly, but because we had so many other vessels out, we weren't able to address those, and it just kind of snowballed over the last, 5 weeks now.
Budget question. I assume that all of this would need to be replaced and over time, but how is it impacting our fiscal year 24 budget? The significant increase in repair budget?
We're tracking to budget as of now. A lot of the work that we're conducting is under warranty. And so it might be a substantial amount of work that we see going on, but it's either covered under warranty or a lot of it was budgeted for like a shipyard event. And so we're coupling the work with that. So we're doing what we can to limit that, but obviously we're seeing some increases in costs with just the labor aspect, the overtime that Blue and Gold's working, and all the outside resources that we're bringing in.
For the transparency for looking forward and thinking about ways to not have similar events happen.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for bringing this to us. And the app is wonderful in sharing the service interruptions. I was getting tons of notifications that week of January 8th. And I appreciate Director Murphy for reaching out to the board to share kind of what was happening on the 10th and the plan going forward. I appreciate getting bad news early with a plan on how we're going to move forward quickly, and it builds trust and in the community when they know what's going on, why it's happening. And I really appreciate how those notifications explain, like it's a service or it's a weather or whatever it is. I really appreciated the app notification. So thank you for what you guys are doing.
Thank you. Others? I would just suggest maybe we put this on the agenda for next month as a follow-up, and with once you've had a chance to really look at it and we dig a little bit deeper to see maybe there needs to be, or maybe there doesn't, some changes in the way we think about maintenance repair, those kinds of things. This is the first time I think I've seen us go through this, and it just sort of all happened fast, so. But, you know, it's important that we get ahead of it for the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim, thanks, Joe. While Gabe's coming up to give us an update on the ridership, I just want to thank the Tim and his team, Jeff Powell, for their work on this, the Blue and Gold team. They're really looking at the reliability and service issues through a customer first lens. And a couple of other things that we're doing that are worth mentioning. I think for the first time, we put the Bay Monarch in service, a Blue and Gold owned vessel. When we would have had to cancel Richmond service, we said, let's put the Bay Monarch in service, even though it's a little bit slower, so that we at least don't have to cancel a run. And it's that kind of creative thinking that we're going to continue to have. What can we do to make sure that canceling service is the last possible resort? And there are some other things that I think we can look at to make sure that happens. Go ahead, Gabe.
Good afternoon, Board of Directors. Gabriel Chan, Transportation Planner at WETA. I'm here to talk a little bit about how ridership turned out for calendar year 23, now that we've gotten all the numbers from December finalized. So year over year, we saw ridership increase by about 440,000 boardings, 2023 compared to 2022. That's an increase of about 25%. So encouraging signs there. And of course, 2022 performed better than 21. So we're seeing, gradual increases year over year in the ridership. System-wide, we did about 2.2 million boardings. And one thing to note is that seasonal variation remains a really strong factor in kind of where our ridership lands, depending on the month. So in July 2023, for example, we saw almost double the amount of riders that we had in January of 2023. And so, some factors that we think are contributing to this, definitely the warmer weather on the weekends. And now in this kind of hybrid working environment, people are choosing to come in on the warmer days during the week as well. It's not just the weekends. And so in terms of the fiscal year 24 budget, we remain about 5 to 10% ahead of our projections for ridership, even despite kind of the low ridership in December, which is expected. And then, of course, Vallejo and Oakland Alameda, they continue to be the workhorses of the system, carrying the bulk of our riders on both the weekdays and the weekends. And South San Francisco is currently lagging behind the rest of the system. Farebox is about 9% on that route. I'm happy to take any questions at this time. Overall, a very good year.
I thought I saw on the slide that there was a sort of a sharp drop off, a little bit of a cliff at the end. Is that, can you comment on that?
Yeah, in the past couple years, we've seen that every year, just with the kind of seasonal dip in December and January. We've started, this past year is the first time we've started incorporating that seasonality into our budget projection for ridership. So moving forward, we're going to continue incorporating that. And then we're also going to start comparing the ridership that comes in to the month of the previous year. Currently, we're doing a 6-month kind of rolling average that we use to compare the ridership. And moving forward, we're going to have it on a month-to-month basis. So that sharp dip, you won't necessarily see it anymore, because it's going to be, for example, comparing December of this year to December of last year, instead of December of this year to like the whole 6-month kind of winter period.
Can you repeat what the box fare recovery for the South City route again? I didn't.
It's 9% year to date. 9.
Other comments, questions? Thanks, Gabriel.
Thank you.
Chair Wonderman, that concludes the executive director's report.
Thanks for the comprehensive report. Let's go to item number 6, if we will. It's the consent calendar. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items A through F on the consent calendar. I won't read them all, but if any member of the board wishes to pull one of the items to have it separately discussed, just let us know. Happy to do that.
I did, sorry, I had one question on the executive director's report on an item that wasn't discussed. So
Yeah, sure. Can
sorry,
we
my
go, are we
apologies.
allowed to go backwards? We can go backwards.
On the Bay Bridge tour with Assemblymember Wilson, I actually heard about the tour happening from a constituent who called to tell me one of our boats was going the wrong direction. So that was interesting. But I heard from her staff, the report MTC gave about the bridges, and it gave me some concerns about the long-term viability of some of the bridges. And I think that would impact our service perhaps in the future of where we would want to have our routes going. And so I'm wondering if we might be able to hear from MTC staff that report that they shared with Assemblymember Wilson about the long-term viability of the bridges in the Bay Area.
Sure, yeah, we can bring that information back. I know, I don't have the details, but I know that they are concerned with a lot of the state of good repair work that needs to be done on the bridges. They were socializing that with Assemblymember Wilson to make sure that she understands the need moving forward. It's a long-term need, so it's not, the bridges are in a state of good repair. They will be for a long, long time, but they won't be eventually if you don't start addressing those issues now. So that's what they were covering, but I was amazed by your eyes and ears everywhere because when the boat went under the bridge and 45 seconds later you texted and said, "Why is the boat going under the Carquinez Bridge?"
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Pippin. Again, any items to pull from the count from item number 6? Any member of the public wish to have an item pulled from the consent calendar? Can't see the public on the screen, I believe.
Yeah, but of course, we don't have that option, but nobody's, I see.
I was gonna ask to pull item E. I had a question about that, so we pull that one. And if there's no others, I'll take a motion on A to F minus E.
Make a motion.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. Can you call the roll, please?
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer, Director Alba,
Yes.
Director Del Bono, and Director Du.
yes.
Then calendar carries.
Well, regarding item E, which is an $841,000 capital expenditure, in reading through the plan, it's tied to a much larger expenditure. This is just the planning element, I think, for that. And I think it's somewhere at 27 or 29 million. So I'm wondering if by proving this 841,000, are we committed to the bigger number? This is for shoreline electrification. I mean, it's obviously stuff we need to do, but are these things tied together, or will we be coming back? Fairly substantial amount of funding. Not fairly. Substantial.
Actually $29 million. And this is just the seed money to get it started with preliminary engineering. We have submitted a plan with MTC for the RM3 funds, and we are not committed yet to funding the 29 million, but we did put in some initial seed funding. And this is one of those amounts, 841,000, just to get the project started. But the plan is to establish a more robust RM3 plan for the $300 million capital program, which we're not ready for yet, but we will be. We're working with MTC to coordinate that. And we've been in talks with them to come up with a plan. Yeah, you're welcome.
I had a second question, which is probably best offered to our attorney and host. Regarding the process by which we access these funds. So, this is an application to MTC to allow us to take down this money. And I guess I thought I was under the impression that we didn't need permission to access regional measure 3 funds. That we wrote it in a way where we were, had some distance on it, so.
Yeah,
I'm-
so I
I'm-
appreciate your directing the question to me. I think this may be the case of the law having some slight tension with just the way things have done for forever, the way things have been done forever. And when someone else controls the purse strings, if we can get along with the process that they are suggesting, we haven't suggested imposing a new process based on a novel reading of the statute. So that's my best answer to you, but it sounds like maybe your CFO has something to add. Or you can go up there if you like.
Chair Winderman, I think I agree with the comments of our fine counsel. I would also add that MTC considers themselves the oversight entity for the bridge toll funds and making sure that they're being spent appropriately. And so they're just, the process is partly as a result of their desire to make sure, the I's are crossed and dotted and that we're complying with the revenue measure that the voters approved, number one. Number two, they're managing cash flow. So for them, are we coming in this year with a 300, do they have the money in the bank today to fund whatever we're asking for? So a lot of it is around cash flow. A lot of it is around their role as oversight entity for, is this CEQA approved? Are we, right? So, but it is a fair question and a good tension that we often have because they have been asking us lots of questions and requesting meetings, and there have been moments where we have said the same thing.
I
Our
recall
money,
from the first 2 regional measures, we were pretty locked in on that kind of a process. So when we structured regional measure 3, as I recall, and I'm not a lawyer, I thought we wrote it in such a way where we wouldn't be in that situation. And it's good to be a good partner, and I don't mind collegiality, and I recognize they're handling cash and all of those things, but I guess I get a little concerned we could come up, what if they don't think it's a good idea? Is that within their jurisdiction? You think that it's not a good idea? And so therefore, I understand that maybe they don't have the money, if their money doesn't exist in the account. But assuming the money exists in the account, I thought we had decided if we thought it was a good idea, it was a good idea.
I was going to try and answer your question, but it sounds like Director Del Bono wanted to say something first.
I do recall the conversation, and this was exactly why we wrote it the way we did, is so we didn't get held up on something like this, because this happened over and over again. And so I'm not comfortable with that at all. I think that the process should be followed. I mean, it's fine. We got to be good partners, and the money's got to be there, and we have to explain not explain what we're doing, but like put out something. But we shouldn't have to be going there and asking for permission. I think that needs to be clear with MTC, because we specifically wrote that language of RM3, so this would not be the situation. So if this is going to start now, I don't see it getting better. That's my view of it.
So that's a fair point, and I think I'll get together with Seamus and concoct a plan to address your remarks. I was standing shoulder to shoulder with you when we drafted that measure, and I think where we ended up was something a little less than the totally WETA-centric, WETA-empowered position that you are just describing. I think the main difference between RM3 and the previous measures were, one, we were successful in the removing the use it or lose it provision of the previous measures, and two, what was MTC approval was changed, and this is, I think, directly responsive what you're talking to, is now to in consultation with MTC. And so the fine line between consultation and notice to MTC and approval from MTC is the territory that you're describing right now and where that tension lives, but your comment is a fair one and we'll keep in mind.
Just to, think about what could go down. One commissioner, he who not be named, right? I guess you named, said we're inefficient. And so let's say MTC as an agency decides for the future of expending revenues that there need to be certain efficiency measures and defines them certain ways. We all know, efficiency is in the eye of the beholder, right? It can be measured differently. And so from from a particular perspective, we might be inefficient and we might not meet some test that the MTC board comes up with, because there's a shortage of future funds and therefore, we're going to apply some efficiency standards that we no longer meet. I think that's why we did what we did, because there were standards we didn't think were right. And we were seeing situations in which money was being sort of held up, so forth. So, I'd like to look into it and see, what is the law? What are the responsibilities we have? If the law says we're responsible for getting approval, then we're responsible for getting approval. If it says we're not, then, I'd rather ask for forgiveness than permission, maybe, if that's what it ultimately takes. But, I'd like to at least look into it.
And I agree, like, from what I remember, and I don't have the language in front of me, but I remember this being an issue with MTC, and the consultation part we did agree to, because I remember at first we didn't even want to do that. We felt like, if we asked for it, we should just get it. We shouldn't even have to. So we did the consultation part, but the approval part, I don't ever remember agreeing to. But the language better than I do. But I would definitely like to hear back on that, because I remember the conversations that went on at the time, and it was exactly what Jim described. Was they had certain standards that they wanted us to meet prior to this language that we didn't feel fair, and that was exactly the intention of having the consultation, and we agreed to that. But approval is not having our staff to. I'm not saying they do this, but in the future or whatever, like Jim said his point, but also having our staff to have to jump through extra hoops for things. I just don't feel comfortable with that at this point. So I would appreciate if you did look at that and see where we can go.
Yeah, I think what we can do is put together a memo for the board that spells out in some clear language how RM3 is different from the previous measures, and also a little bit of how it's the same, because I used to carry the language around with me to these board meetings, and this is the one board meeting where I don't have it. But I've reviewed it with Steve a number of times, and it's somewhere in the middle. We are not the total controllers of our own destiny when it comes to WETA's share of RM3 funds, but we have a lot more flexibility and control than we did under previous measures. But there's nothing else that MTC can do with the funds that are reserved for WETA. So those funds are ours to use. We have much more flexibility under the operating fund account now that it is not use it or lose it, and it's in an account that earns interest that we will benefit from. The capital funds do require a 5-year plan and approval of MTC's acceptance of that 5-year plan. MTC staff has been great to work with on this. They have been very flexible with us on accessing these funds, and we expect that will continue. And I think at the same time, we need to be guarded and make sure that we are in a position to be able to access these funds and resist any paths that any barriers or challenges that might be put in front of us. But the letter of the law in RM3 is not that we have total control over how the funds are spent or when we get them. We are in some cases subject to decisions that MTC makes as a commission or staff.
Your report says somewhere in there, I recall, it says WETA is fortunate not to be facing the same operational pressure that many other agencies are facing. However, RM3 runs out in 2030, 4, I think you said.
Correct.
So, it's not like we're funded forever. And, I know we have already seen instances in which there's a view by some other agencies that, the distribution of funds in the Bay Area is somehow unfair, right? And then, so I just think these, potential squabbles are out there in which the MTC, which really represents all of the agencies, and, I think it's fair to say they probably represent the best interest of the collective group. But, they could be under some pressure at some point. And if we don't have the ability to determine our destiny with the funds that are directed for our use, for our operations and capital program, that's very concerning. And, we should at least be aware of what the implications of that are. Okay. Any other questions, comments on that fine point? Thank you. So can we get a motion, please, on item 6E? No.
Move to approve.
Second?
Okay, we've got a motion and second on 6E.
Mr. Wonderman. Mr. Moyer,
Yeah.
Director Alba,
Yes.
Director Del Bono,
Yes.
Director Du.
Yes.
Pass.
Okay, item 7, amend agreement with Blue and Gold Fleet for operation of estuary water shuttle pilot project.
Thanks, Chair Wonderman. Mike Gowerty is going to present this item while he's making his way up. I'll just thank him and his team, and also Tim and his team for their work in getting this to a place where we can implement this pilot project. This is our first pilot service that we are moving forward with. And it's a great collaboration with a number of stakeholders in Alameda and Oakland. Thank you. At our last meeting, you appointed a subcommittee of the board to evaluate these pilot services, make recommendations to the board about how to proceed with these pilot services. We had a great first meeting of that subcommittee, and not only did they look at this item coming before you and hear the details on why we decided to move forward with this agreement with Blue and Gold Fleet to operate this pilot service, but we also looked at a number of other pilot services that we could potentially move forward with in the coming years. And as you know, we're planning on budgeting a significant amount of funds to be able to implement those services moving forward. So there's a lot of opportunity down the road for us to pursue these services. This one started out as one where we might need a partner with a vessel, and it ended up being one where we needed to go and acquire a vessel ourselves to be able to operate the service. And Mike is going to tell us that story and explain the rationale and reasoning behind the decision, and ask for your support.
Thank you. I hope you're considering the Pleasant Hill Trench amongst the potential.
Director Du, Director Del Bono, we'll put that on our list of pilot projects to look at. Thanks, Seamus. Thanks for kind of providing some background and queuing that up. Hopefully this is a preview of things to come. I think pilot projects have really, there's been interest over the years. The work that we're doing on the business plan with Directors Alba and Moyer, they got a bit of a preview of where we'd like to position pilot projects within our service vision, which we'll we'll be bringing an update to the full board potentially in April of this year. So there's a wide variety of potential pilot projects out there. And Directors Du and Director Del Bono on the pilot committee got a preview of that in our first meeting. We're going to need all the tools available for us to deliver that range of projects. Our private operator RFP is one tool. And that was the tool, like Seamus mentioned, that we originally identified as a candidate to find an operator for this specific projects. Other tools include project-specific RFPs. We have an existing contract with our current operator, the executive authority. Any other thing we can imagine to get these projects underway, and be able to field test new technologies, test markets that are difficult to test through traditional transportation demand modeling processes, see if there's demand there for long-term service. So this project in particular is really exciting. This represents the last approval needed from our board to go forward with eventually operating the project in partnership with the city of Alameda. Thank you, Rochelle. And Rochelle's going to speak later to the city's perspective on the project, and the action here. There's a whole host of other partners working with the city of Alameda that have been really key to moving this project forward. They've actually purchased a boat already to operate the project. And we're working out with them a concept for the service plan. Operations would potentially start as early as June of this year. That would provide somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 crossings between Oakland and Alameda across the estuary on a boat that would be specifically designed to carry as many bikes as possible. So this is a great connection across the estuary where the current option, biking through the Posey Tube, is an adventure. And, you know, a real opportunity, not only just for mobility between Alameda and Oakland, but potential access to ferry terminals. You know, it's in a lot of instances, it's as easy to get to an Alameda terminal if you're in Oakland as the Oakland terminal itself, and vice versa. So for this project specifically, we did, again, as Seamus mentioned, we had a pivot. We did reach out to both of the private operators on our on-call RFP list with the premise that, hey, maybe an opportunity to move this project forward would be bringing an operator that supplies not only the boat, but also the crews. It became apparent after getting proposals from both firms, Prop SF and Blue and Gold Fleet, that that model wasn't going to work in this instance. There wasn't a boat that we identified as suitable for the service. So we made a pivot, and given the time frame of the project, given the reality that having the owner provided a vessel, in this case, a vessel provided by the city of Alameda and its partners, they would need access to our operations and maintenance facility. We decided that the best approach for getting this project delivered would be to work with Blue and Gold through our existing contract operations contract. So, you know, a couple specific opportunities working with Blue and Gold in that capacity presents or offers. First, they already have staff at the operations and maintenance facility, which may be required to do work on the Woodstock. So that's the name of the boat that the city of Alameda has procured from Buffalo. And your PIO is already having a lot of fun playing on the Woodstock name with their tweets and whatnot. So if that boat needs to go to Central Bay, Blue and Gold's already there. They have a presence. We can get the repair and maintenance done for it. Second, Blue and Gold operates service for us presently. They have immediate access to crews and potentially backup crews if we need them to sustain the operation of the service once it begins. Blue and Gold Fleet also has extensive experience operating and maintaining boats on behalf of an owner. So not only obviously they have boats in their own fleet, they have extensive experience with us and other entities operating boats on the owner's behalf. And then lastly, you know, given the quick time frame of this project, and ideally for future pilot projects we do, there'll be a bit more of a lead time to look at more options. We have the benefit of already being in contract with Blue and Gold, so we can aggressively meet the city's desired start time. You know, I'll also add, you know, we have been working very closely with the city of Alameda in this process. They've been side by side with us as we've been making this proposal, this recommendation to you. They have a very high level of comfort, and I'll let them speak to that during their own opportunity or during their own comment period. A high level of comfort with Blue and Gold Fleet. It's been serving their community for over 3 decades. So you know, a very proven track record there. So the specific recommendation we're making here is to authorize staff to prepare a contract amendment with Blue and Gold for an amount up to $2 million, of which we would be directly reimbursed from the city for a period of up to 2 years to operate the service. The exact extent, the exact duration of the operation will depend on how fast the money is spent and the availability of future sources from the city of Alameda and its partners. But the goal here is to test it for a significant span of time to ultimately see if there's a market here, if there's an operation profile that makes sense. Happy to answer any questions. There's also a written staff report supporting the recommendation.
A couple of quick questions. What's the capacity of the boat and how many staff are required?
The capacity upon purchase of the boat is 48 passengers. We expect it to remain the same, if not roughly the same, as we retrofit to create more room for bikes and whatnot. And then the crew, unlike the majority of our current cruise vessels, which require 4 crew, this vessel would be staffed with 2 crew.
And am I correct? It's, the idea is to make it free,
Yes.
good price, and argue it.
Yeah.
Questions, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious, especially as we're looking at replicating and doing pilot projects with other cities, what the funding entities were for that package, the 2 million that City of Alameda was able to.
Rochelle Wheeler can speak more authoritatively to this than I can. May I invite you up to speak? Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon, Director Wonderman and board members. I am Rochelle Wheeler, Senior Transportation Planner with the City of Alameda, and I'm managing the water shuttle project from the city's end. Speaking to your question, the entities are many. One is we have a grant from the Alameda County Transportation Commission. And some of that money is TFCA money, which the Air District distributes. That's matching 25% of the overall project costs. The bulk of the rest of the money is there's a small amount that the city itself is putting in, 150,000 for 2 years. But the rest of it is coming from private entities, mainly from, we have 2 right now, they're merging together, but we have 2 transportation management associations which collect revenue from housing and commercial development. They're required to, per our development approvals, to help support transportation needs that those new housing and new commercial developments create. So they are contributing, I think between the 2 of them, almost $1 million to this project. And then we're also getting funding from, on the Oakland side, from the CAM group, which manages Jack London Square, because this water shuttle will be stopping right at their doorstep and bringing people from Alameda there. And also vice versa, bringing people who live in the Jack London Square area to Alameda. There's a huge demand for a grocery store on that end, because there is no grocery store in the Jack London Square area, and they've been unable to bring one there. So we have several of them in Alameda, so it'll be bringing them to us. Those are the sources.
Thanks, Rochelle. We're lucky to have the right person here to answer that question.
We have a hand raised from the Alameda Chamber of Commerce. Who could that be?
I think it's Madeline, right? Madeline, go ahead and unmute yourself. You
I
have the-
just did. Good afternoon, everybody. Madeline Sadek, Alameda Chamber and Economic Alliance. And we are really in full support of this amazing pilot program. It's long overdue. And it's a great incentive and added value to all the employers to use it with their employees, that not all of them live in Alameda, most of them live in Oakland. So that will be a great transportation resource for them. And that will be creating more loyalty for them, so not to be poached in other cities where they are. I think it's great. I've been talking to a lot of businesses in Harbor Bay and in different areas, and they're all excited about this, and they're in full support. And I'm representing the entire community of the business there. Thank you so much for that. I can't wait until we party that and get it done.
Thank you. Are there other, I can't start to see, is there other hands raised?
There are. Ms. G. Lee, Lucy from the TMA.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
We can hear you.
Oh,
We hear you.
This is Lucy Geely with the Alameda TMA. I've been part of the team to create the water shuttle for over a year, but the need's been recognized for decades. The Estuary Water Shuttle link will link Alameda's northern waterfront with Jack London Square with about a 3-minute ride. So really short ride. It's really close. And the 2-year pilot program has the intent of course, continuing on because we know that there is that need. the team that's been working on it for over a year has learned a lot, and we've learned to respect the water transit and how much you all do to try and get water transit to be enjoyable and effective. And one of the things that we've learned is it takes a long time. And right now we're so close to having this project in and to go live in this spring, and we just want to move forward, and we're hoping that approving the blue and gold fleet amendment will allow us to just keep our schedule and bring this free, amazing cross estuary water shuttle to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we see Justin Hu Win.
Hi, I'm Justin Huyen. I represent Bike East Bay. As many know, pedestrian and bike access between the western part of Alameda and Oakland is deeply inadequate and unsafe. We look forward to supporting this free water shuttle, provide an opportunity to connect the residents of Alameda and Oakland to access various commercial as residential and recreational opportunities. And yeah, we stand in support of this pilot. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike O'Hara.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I'm Mike O'Hara, Director of Forward Planning for Tim Lewis Communities, but a developer of a couple of properties on the northern waterfront in Alameda. But more germane to today's conversation, I'm also the president of the Alameda Transportation Management Association. The ATMA works with developers and businesses and very closely with the city of Alameda to solve transportation issues in the city and in the area around it. So in both capacities, I'm here to urge you to approve this operating agreement amendment in order to provide this free link between the cities. As Justin just mentioned, there's currently no real easy transit for bikes or pedestrian access connecting the two cities. This free water shuttle provides such an opportunity for both commercial establishments and recreation on both sides of the estuary, and it knits the two cities together even closer. The step we're urging you to take today allows this important pilot program to take shape. We have a grant, we have funding, and we have a big yellow boat. With today's action, we will have an operator. It's a valuable public-private partnership that got us here, and I want to thank WETA staff, specifically Mike Gordy and Tim Hanners, and acknowledge the efforts of prior staff, Kevin Connolly, for their efforts to get us here. Rochelle Wheeler and Brian McGuire from the city have been tireless champions of this whole effort, and I want to acknowledge them, and as well as the funding contributors, specifically the West Alameda TMA, the Jack London Square, the City of Alameda, as well as our organization. So we look forward to working with Blue and Gold to get this pilot project in the water and operational. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mike. I don't see any more hands on the screen. You see? But go ahead, please.
Thanks again, Rochelle Wheeler with the City of Alameda. And I just want to thank you for considering this action and urge you to support the staff recommendation to amend the blue and gold contract for the Oakland Alameda Estuary Water Shuttle Pilot Project. We are kind of echoing what we heard. We at the city are super appreciative, particularly of WETA's partnership in this project. This would not be happening without WETA's partnership. And I am so grateful the more I learn about all the intricacies of basically starting kind of almost a new transit service, that have such a great partner who knows so much about this. It's a lot. It's very complex, even for a short little estuary crossing of about 800 feet is what our estuary is in this location. And so we're really great to be partnering. There's so much momentum for and eagerness for this project. Whoever I talk to about this project is super excited about it. This past Tuesday night, our city council approved the WETA city agreement for this project, which I was last here in November. Not literally here, but I was in front of you guys then, urging the support which you guys provided to that WETA City of Alameda contract. So our council just approved that. We also approved 2 other operational agreements that are needed as well for this project. We, just today, actually, there was a blog post by a community member who also happens to be one of our transportation commissioners, praising specifically the collaboration of all of our entities for this project and really showing and exemplifying the level of public support there is for this project. People are very excited about it. And we are planning to and working towards launching in June. And so these are really, we're getting close, and these are kind of the last parts that are needed to keep this moving. So we definitely, as Mike already mentioned, support moving forward with Blue and Gold. They have been supporting ferry service in our community for decades, and we have strong faith that this is the right partnership to move forward with at this time. And we really thank you for your consideration of this item and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Pat. Identify yourself, please.
Pat Murphy, President of Blue and Gold Fleet, Chair Wonderman and Board of Directors. I just appreciate the opportunity to have this item come up before you today. I'm surprised, obviously, very supportive of it. We're proud to say that we've been partners directly or indirectly with the city of Alameda since 1992. And then I just also wanted to further that one thing that wasn't mentioned in this is that there is an added benefit to the San Francisco Bay Ferry for some of my crew members who have taken the time and initiative to move up from the deck level to captain, who don't often get captain hours because of the fleet that you currently have. They need to get operational hours to kind of move up in this system, and this is a great opportunity for them to do that. So we really look forward to that. Just additionally wanted to thank the staff, Mike, you and your staff, and Tim and you and your staff, working with my staff and myself over the last few months. I really appreciate it. A lot of hard work. Thank you.
Sly Hunter, please.
Sly Hunter, Regional Rep for Master Mason Pilots. I just want to start by saying I always hate when people say I'm going to echo what someone else said, but I want to echo what President Pat Murphy just said. For our men and women who are trying to halt pipe at Blue and Gold, pilot programs like this are very important. Master Mason Pilot support. We appreciate all the hard work that everyone involved in this program has done. And we look forward to other pilot programs, but I especially appreciate this thing moving forward for our men and women that are in the house pipe right now. And we support the Board of Directors' decision to award it to the Blue and Gold Fleet. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other folks wish to testify on item number 7? Board members, questions, comments?
I have a
Go
very
ahead,
quick
please,
question.
Director.
I don't know much about the estuary. Is it impacted by tides, low tides, when this shuttle wouldn't be able to operate?
There are no operational constraints in that regard. So continuously throughout the hours of operation, they'll be able to traverse the estuary. You know, they obviously get some tidal effect being on the bay, but the water depth is never an issue.
Okay, great.
Others?
I don't have any questions, but I have a comment. One, thanks for our staff, and that's great. I think this is long overdue, but I also want to point out and say thank you to Alameda staff, because that's huge, that how much work has been put into it, how much time and thought has gone into it, the fact that they went out and bought their own boat, they found their own the funding, because we'd love to fund everything, but unfortunately we can't do that. You know, this is a great, obviously living in Alameda for a long time, I think just besides bikes, having less people in cars going through the tube or over bridges is a major deal. And if we can find any way to prevent that from happening, that's a huge benefit. And I think the maritime history of Alameda too. This is a place steep in maritime history, and the more boats we can get in Alameda going back and forth and supporting each other's communities, I think is huge. But I think kudos to the Alameda staff for going out there and doing all this groundwork and figuring it out. And lastly, I listened to you know, the reasoning for why we would grant this to Blue and Gold, and I think it's absolutely, you know, important and to make this successful. And I think Blue and Gold is in the best position to do this, especially with having the maintenance facility right there. So I fully support that recommendation.
Terrific, thank you. Any other board members, members of the public? Okay, let's, let me just say, someone said it takes a village. And this is a really great example of how, the partnerships that we've developed together between the city of Alameda and WETA and the TMA and Blue and Gold and all of the different entities have really built something very special here, where there's so much trust and the capability to do something different. I mean, it doesn't seem that amazing that we should be able to take a boat between Alameda and Oakland across this, a narrow estuary, and yet it's hard. There's just a lot of pieces to the puzzle, and I appreciate the willingness of all of the partners to kind of stay with it and pivot, as you said, Mike, and figure out this is something we want to do. So we have a North Star. How are we going to get there? And looks like we're not quite there yet, but we're getting awfully close, and certainly with this vote, much closer. So with that, I'll close the testimony, and I'll look for a motion from the board.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Would Melanie, would you call the roll on 7, please?
Wonderman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer, Director Alba, Director Del Bono,
Yes.
and Director Du.
Yes.
Item passes.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. If I may just add to the roll call of folks that have helped make this happen, Joe, Jeff, and Kevin from operations as well.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome job, folks. All right, item number 8 then, adjust fiscal year 23-24 budget, capital budget for Alameda Main Street Terminal Rehabilitation Project. Seems like an accounting move of some sort.
Yes. It's really just a function of when we were anticipating which fiscal year each payment would fall into for a capital often $2 million can be the difference between 1 month or another month. And originally, I think there was some anticipation that we would spend more before June 30th, and we just didn't, basically. So really, this is just to bring transparency and to right size the fiscal year 24 budget. It doesn't change the overall project budget. It's still coming in slightly below the $9.7 million that was allocated for the project in the total project budget. And in the capital budget, it's really just a fiscal year 24 adjustment is what's before you in this item here. And then in a couple more months, we'll be coming back to you with the budget proposal, and we'll be bringing you more updates on the entire capital program as far as the projects that were proposed for fiscal year 24. But this one was a significant change, and we wanted to bring it to your attention and do a formal budget adjustment because it was so significant.
Does it require a change or any reference in the audit that was done?
No, because the audit was for fiscal year 23 and it reflected the actual expense for the year. So no, it's really just a budget problem. It was a budget planning.
Got it.
Yeah, calculation.
Okay, thank you, Rita. We have a motion. We have a second. Thank you. Are there members of the public that wish to speak on item 8? Melanie?
No one has signed up to speak.
Okay, let's close the public hearing and take a vote on 8.
Wonderman,
Yes?
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
Director Alba,
Yes.
Director Del Bono.
Yes.
Director Du.
Yes.
Passes.
Thank you. The item that's been teased on the screen all day that we've all been waiting for. Take it away. Working Waterfront Coalition update.
Great. It's been bothering me too. I was like, this is not
That's great.
So today is an informational item with an update on the Working Waterfront Coalition. We have here today Bobby Winston and Sal Vaca, as well as Blanca Lopez, who are all part of spearheading this program. I wanted to just back up. It's been about 8 or 9 months since we brought you an update on this item. So I wanted to back up and just give a really brief overview of what this is. It is a regional maritime workforce development program. And, I think for us, as we look towards the future and we start thinking about our expansion plans, expanding our existing routes, expanding to new locations, we need to ensure that there's going to be a pipeline of skilled workers to help support the operation, maintenance, and ship repair needs of that new system. Right now, we are projecting in the next 5 to 10 years, a lot of retirements of deckhands. There's currently open positions at shipyards. So we need to fill those positions. We need to start an effort to work towards that, so that in 10 years, we're not going to be farther behind. The goal of this phase of the Working Waterfront Coalition is to provide a paid training pathway for individuals from low-income communities or from the reentry population, and we're targeting the ages 18 to 24-year-olds. This paid apprentice program will be employer-led, meaning that the employers that are part of the coalition are defining the type of training that they need to fill the positions that are open in their businesses. And the program also features a suite of wraparound services to help ensure that participants are going to be as successful as possible while they're in the actual program. There's first source hiring agreements with the employers in the coalition, job placement assistance for participants, and then assistance from the coalition to process the paperwork associated with the tax credits that are available to employers who hire or have apprentice program. Let's see, to date, we've participated in helping to develop the supporters and the coalition members, speaking to people from different cities, trying to gather more support for this effort. We've also been providing tours of our facilities and our service, and we're preparing to have the first cohort of participants go through the actual training program at either or both or either of our maintenance facilities in Alameda as well as Vallejo this summer. But we're also looking at other ways to support the program, and we're hoping to get a little bit of feedback from you today on that topic. But turning back to the focus of the item today, we wanted to provide you an update on what we're calling the TWIC project. This project is focused on the reentry population. The coalition has been working with community-based organizations that work with these communities in order to have those community-based organizations identify individuals who are interested in joining the maritime workforce and who have some baseline skills in order to enter the apprentice program. I think Sal and Bobby can talk a little bit more about that in a moment here. For those of you who might not be aware, TWIC is an acronym. It stands for Transportation Worker Identification Credential. It's a credential that's issued it's required by the Maritime Transportation Security Act for workers who need access to the nation's secured maritime facilities and vessels. So the TSA, Transportation Security Agency, issues that card, that credential, and they conduct a security threat assessment or a background check for the people who are applying for that. That's obviously going to be a barrier for the reentry population. So the Working Waterfront Coalition has developed a strategy to overcome this barrier, and I'll let Bobby and Sal talk about that further. But I want to make sure to recognize Blue and Gold Fleet for their efforts in identifying positions that would be a good fit for this TWIC pilot project and working really hard with the unions to make the processes, the regular union processes possible to be able to support this effort. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Bobby.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Vice Chair, esteemed board members, I'm the opening act for Sal Vaca, who you really want to hear. Sal's going to tell you about the rollicking growth of the Working Waterfront Coalition. Just a few highlights. I am especially proud that after 2 years' work with leadership from Blue and Gold, some pilots, and WETA, the TWIC project officially gets underway. 2 years it took. Tuesday is when Eddie Edwards and Paul Banks start work as gate ambassadors. Recall that this project addresses the impediment of that obtaining this required Homeland Security credential presents to justice-involved candidates. That's the new jargon. Alameda County Probation, in the person of the remarkable Shadiqua M. Smith, who is the probation coordinator, is providing 12 weeks salary subsidy and the support services of the amazing Lau family. Lau family is a social services agency that I simply can't overstate. They are going to provide, paid for by Alameda County Probation, a suite of support services, including counseling, clothing, and transportation. I had the chance to meet yesterday with Eddie and Paul, both of whom Shadiqua personally selected from her client cohort. Indeed, Shadiqua is personally escorting Eddie and Paul to their first day of work on Tuesday. Paul, he has an exuberant personality. He's a natural for customers. Eddie has a mechanical engineering background, a skill I understand there's some call for these days. Both Eddie and Paul brim with enthusiasm and gratitude. The chance we are giving them. I cannot guarantee success with the TWIC project. This is a fraught business, but I am deeply proud that we are trying, and I hope you want to. I was happily surprised to learn that a workforce component is required for infrastructure. Indeed, Sal was called in to work with the Port of Oakland on their $50 million electric tug project. Oh, shall I start again, Jeff? Yeah. No. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sal was called in to work on this $50 million electric tug project. This is a first for the West Coast. Our work has attracted the attention of Senator Smallwood Cuevas of Los Angeles. She's a member of the California Senate and a workforce development leader. Sal and I spoke with the senator for over an hour last week. She has passed SB 150, which mandates that $50 million of infrastructure money be spent on projects just like ours. She's preparing a so-called cleanup bill. She wants to work with us on ideas. We've secured the web address waterfrontjobs.com, and we will do business under that moniker. It debuts any day now. We're also going to have databases that track job applicants, high school interest in maritime career paths, available positions, job offerings, and internship opportunities. May I call out one such summer internship program, the brainchild of Tiffany Tatum of the Port of San Francisco, which will host some 10 young people for 2 weeks residency at Cal State Maritime this summer, supplemented by what we hope will be rotations through other maritime settings, perhaps shadowing folks on ferries. It's essential that we adopt a regional approach with such efforts and avoid duplication of effort and cast a wider net for participation. Indeed, I hope to make Tiffany's project a regional model that we have with all of the ports. Let me say that none of this would be happening without the leadership of our unions, and I am very grateful to Regional Director Marina V. Secatano and newly elected President Robert Estrada of the IBU, along with Regional Director Captain Sly Hunter and Carolyn Organ of MMP. They are all in the cockpit with Sal and I making this whole thing happen. They're steering, they're involved in every major decision. Indeed, MMP is waiving membership fees for TWIC project participants. Marina is taking point designing our marine transportation training. And she's also brought aboard the formidable Carpenters Union. You may be surprised, I was, to learn that the Carpenters represent divers and pile drivers. They're looking for a spot to place a training facility. They have significant resources, and we're collaborating with them, identifying spots. We're cementing relationships with high school welding programs around the region. You heard we're going to start our first marine skills training this summer. We're assembling our project team. I'm really overjoyed to report that Sal has persuaded Jill Perry to join us. She's a CPA retired from Richmond, where she managed workforce grants, and this is skill we really need. We're bringing on an individual whose whole job will be just to canvass all around the region, in person, groups like Sea Scouts and wherever we can find folks that have an interest in these kinds of careers. We've brought aboard Blanca Lopez, who was with us here today. Stand up, Blanca. Blanca, you'll remember, is one of our TikTok kids. Blanca graduated from high school early, and she has also sailed through a professional grade accounting course that we put her through. CPA Jill is going to mentor Blanca. Her career goal is to be an accountant. She's well on her way already. We've placed our very first employee, Eddie Galicia, who is thriving in an MMP job at AmNav Navigation as a mechanic. You know, it's remarkable that all this that's happened, we have not received a dime in funding, not one dime yet. I mean, we have, thanks to Sal, some significant resources coming our way. But all this momentum has been achieved thanks to the volunteerism and the vision, you know, of a whole region's worth of community, civic, union, and corporate leaders. You know, it's a long list of people that I have inveigled into doing. But there's just one I want to call out for special mention now, and it's your own Lauren. Lauren has been really magnificent. She really has. Lauren believes in this, and she's been involved every step of the way, not just as a supporter. She's been a challenging voice to make us do better and think more clearly. So enough from me. I'm grateful for the chance to report on our progress, absolutely none of which would be happening without the man you really want to hear from, which is the great Sal Vaca. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Bobby sure is a tough act to follow. Eight months ago, we came before you with a lot of good ideas, some really good news about the success that we've had in developing partnerships and securing grants. At that time, we shared with you the vast partnership that we were amassing. We shared with you that we had been successful in 2 funding opportunities, bringing in nearly $1 million to launch some of these ideas. Today, we come before you with more good news in that some of those ideas have come to fruition. You'll see that they're starting to be implemented. They're starting to have an impact in our community. And you'll see also that our partnership continues to grow practically every single day. First 2 grants that we secured was $500,000 with Contra Costa as the lead applicant. And the second one was with West Oakland Job Resource Center. That has really served as the driver to really bring other partners on board to support the work that we've been doing. I'm pleased to mention also to you that we secured the biggest catch to date, which was $4 million grant, high road grant, hugely competitive, coveted. Our partnership was awarded $4 million from the state of California to implement our programs and our strategies. And I'm also pleased to announce recently, we signed a contract with Solana Workforce Development Board. And that came about from our presentation 8 months ago. Your director, Pippin Du, was very excited about what she heard. So she said, you got to come out to Vallejo, make a presentation to our group. In that presentation was Heather Hendry, who's the director of the Solana Workforce Development Board. She pulled me aside afterwards. She says, we have some money. We want to be part of this. Hence that $60,000 grant to make sure that Solana residents had access to the work that we're doing. In that meeting, also very telling, was Mr. Richard Palmer from Mare Island Dry Dock. You look at the companies in the marine maintenance, marine repair space, there's two giants in the Bay Area. It's Mare Island Dry Dock and Bay Ship and Yacht. And I was pleased to hear that Blue and Gold and WETA is working with both of them. And they're on board helping us develop a pathway for the next generation of marine mechanics and boilermakers, ship fitters in their sector. Bobby also mentioned some of our impactful partnerships. We were invited by the Port of Oakland to assist them with a $50 million e-tugboat grant to the California Air Resource Board. That particular funding source required a workforce development component in which the players at the time and the riders weren't very well versed on the workforce development taking place in our community. They reached out to us. And remember, I mentioned to you that $4 million grant award from the state? It was basically a plug and play unit for that particular grant with the Port of Oakland. They were able to take that particular grant with slight modifications and build it into their plan as their workforce development strategy. We made that $4 million available to the applicants of Port of Oakland as an in-kind match, which is huge for them. But in turn, also, they including funding in that particular grant for participants of our training program, and specifically upwards of 50 of the individuals that eventually will go through our marine training will also receive advanced training with CSU Maritime. They're going to take their 2 entry-level Coast Guard certification training programs and embed a sustainability component that our students will have access to participate and directly tie that training, that work to that e-tugboat project if it gets funded, and we're optimistic that it can get funded. And obviously the word got out about our partnership with the Port of Oakland very recently at the direction and partnership with Lauren and WETA. We also met with the Port of San Francisco. They're interested in a major funding opportunity that's coming down the pike under EPA Clean Ports Initiative. And as you can see, they're looking to tie their model, their strategy to really support the expansion of e-vessels with WETA. We're looking forward to being part of that application. Just yesterday, I was at a zero emissions symposium hosted by the Port of Oakland. In talking to the staff of Port of Oakland, I mentioned to him, by the way, we're in discussions with the Port of San Francisco about partnering with them on the Clean Ports grant. Guess what, Bobby? We have an invitation now to meet back again with the folks from Port of Oakland, because they also want us to be part of that same application for Clean Ports grant. So again, the enthusiasm, the partnership, the support continues to grow practically every day. Just as a reminder to all of you, these are the folks, the partners that we've been working with since day one. That includes employers, and this is an employer-led initiative. Employers in the marine maintenance and repair sector. Mr. Bill Elliott from Bay Ship and Yacht is the chairman of our advisory board. Mare Island Dry Dock has also agreed to join that advisory board, along with American Navigation and also Foss tugboat companies. Working with ferry services and ferry operators, Blue and Gold and WETA. And also the labor is really key to the work that we're doing in the form of the Machinist Union, IBU, and the MMPs. And CSU Maritime is a key partner and will continue to be a key partner going forward. We also have a partnership, a formal partnership with the Machinist Institute in Seattle. They have hired an individual locally and then signed him locally to work directly and support our project. That just speaks to their support and their commitment to the work that we're doing. We're also working with the workforce development boards. 8 months ago, I mentioned to you that we're working with Contra Costa and Alameda. You can see that Solano now is also on that list. And also a number of key community-based organizations that I'll talk about them a little bit more later about their role in the support in our entire model. And then lastly, as Bobby mentioned, the Alameda County Reentry Program, really key. This is what our org chart is going to look like as of April of this year, going forward. And I call this Bobby's world. At least a big part of his world. As you can see on the left-hand side, that's the Friends of the Ports, a nonprofit, with our board, our advisory board, and also the staff that we're bringing on board to help us carry out the work. On the right-hand side is the work and the roles of the workforce development boards and a whole host of network community partners that will be working with us in regards to the outreach, the vetting, the preparation, the case management, the support services, the job placement assistance, and the follow-up for the participants that come through our training program. And the work really focuses initially on two major tracks. The first one is the marine trades, short-term intensive training, curriculum outline being developed by industry telling us this is what they need to see in place. And short-term really is a best practice for the population that we're working with, where they haven't had a really track record of history of a whole lot of success. And oftentimes don't have the means to support themselves to commit to a long-term training program. Short-term intensive hands-on really is the model that works well. That's the model that we're implementing. The second track is on the water transportation side, working with WETA and Blue and Gold and the representing unions, taking a look at the calendar that MMPs and IBU will put for recruitment for the rest of the year. We will align our outreach and our preparation with all the whole host of community partners that are referenced in that org chart to educate our community, our residents, give them an opportunity to attend orientations and get a deeper understanding of what the work and what the jobs are like, and be able to select that this is something that they are interested in. Bobby mentioned the launching of our website, waterfrontjobs.com. This is a quick snapshot of what the front page will look like. More details to follow. And also, Bobby and Lauren referenced the TWIC project. I will mention this. 8 months ago, when I mentioned to you about the work that we're doing, I stressed that equity and inclusion was baked into everything that we do. This particular project is a glaring example of what equity looks like, what inclusion looks like. We're trying to remove a barrier. We're closing the gap. We're providing the support and the resources that individuals need to be able to latch on that first rung in career ladder. This particular model, this particular project has the potential to really become a national model about how industry, workforce development partners, communities come together to remove those barriers. And really, much credit to Bobby, because he took this on early on, and I thought he was a little nuts, because I say that's, but it was really his vision, his passion, his commitment that really drove this with support of WETA and Blue and Gold and the unions. Really outstanding work. Let me give you a quick timeline of what our year is going to look like. And this will help our partners really set expectations of the major activities that were scheduled to take place this year. January, we have already released a job announcement for instructors in the marine trades. As expected, we're going to have to be very creative and resourceful in reaching out because it's a very competitive market out there. And we want to be able to find the right individuals that come into our program and work with our students. In March, we would expect to complete the short-term curriculum that will be blessed by industry, and the outreach, the recruitment with the whole host of network community partners that I've mentioned to you in the org chart will start in March and May of this year, with launching the first Marine Trades cohort July of this year. And in discussions with your staff, and our request is that we look at 2 of your facilities that really serve as turnkey operations that are publicly funded I believe. And indirectly benefit the public because you have operating ferries. By making those facilities available now to train the next generation of workers, you're having a direct benefit to the community, to your residents. And in June, we'll also launch the water transportation outreach and recruitment. Second half of the year, we'll start that cycle again with the outreach, the recruitment, and I can guarantee you cohort 2 will look different than cohort 1 because we're going to be learning. We're going to be changing. We're going to be making improvements with every single cohort and do the same thing for water transportation. And the second cohort will start October of this year. Next year for 2025, we already have a very aggressive schedule for a minimum of 3 to 4 training cycles. And we also have a very short list of potential training sites. At the top of that list is WETA's operations and maintenance shops, both in Alameda and also in Vallejo. We'll be having discussions with Chevron about the potential of co-sharing space that Chevron owns with CSU Maritime. CSU offers their Coast Guard entry-level certifications in Richmond. It would be a pretty good fit for us to also be located there on site with CSU Maritime. And Mr. Bill Elliott from Bay Ship and Yacht has also offered space within his facility as a potential training site. And then lastly, Mare Island also is a great location for citing our training programs. And this is my last slide. This is where we've made some incredible progress. We have a very clear plan and vision for the work that we need to do in the next 2 years. But the continued support of this board is absolutely critical for us to be able to be as successful and as impactful as we need to be. And we have 4 very clear asks of the board for your consideration and hopefully eventually your approval. Number 1, continue to support the possibility that 1 or 2 of your maintenance operations facilities during their downtime could be made available, will be made available to the program for hands-on training components, for welding, for machining, for rigging. You're already fully outfitted to do that. Number 2, part of the orientation that we're going to have for the water transportation for individuals that are interested in learning more about becoming deckhands and eventually captain assistants and captains, part of the orientation is we want to give them a ride on the ferries so they can see the work that's taking place. They can interact with the deckhands. They can interact with the captains. They can get a clearer picture of how those career tracks are a good fit for them. Number 3, continue to support our partnership and our grant development strategies. We need to continue to expand those partners. We need to continue to bring in dollars to really support and grow and continue the operations. And your support is absolutely key to do that. And then lastly, and I'm glad your attorney is, your legal counsel is here to hear this one. Consider opportunities where you could really push the envelope to be creative and legally appropriate to embed language in your procurement practices that directs your contractors, your subrecipients, and connects them to the Working Waterfront Partnership. It's been done before. I know that federal dollars are very restrictive. State dollars have a little bit more room. Local dollars have more flexibility. Let's explore those opportunities where we can look at best practices on procurement opportunities and how we connect those contracting opportunities to the working waterfront. One example, in the city of Richmond, I ran similar programs called Richmond Build. We institutionalized that program into the city's procurement contracting process where allowed. And instead of us pursuing the employers for job opportunities, employers that were doing contracts with the city of Richmond, employers were contacting us because it was a condition of their contract and obligation to the community. I would encourage this board and the staff to work with us in exploring those type of strategies and practices that again would become best practices for other communities to look at and replicate. Thank you for your time. Are we open for questions?
Thanks, Al. Do we have, first of all, let me just say thank you to, to you and to Bobby for bringing this to us, for the incredible amount of work that you've done. It's really amazing to hear an idea, the germination of an idea into action, into a plan, into effect. And that's what we're seeing. And it's, I remember talking to Bobby about this, I guess it was 2 years ago, and saying, we need to be rebuilding our waterfront enterprise in the Bay Area with this rich history of shipbuilding and ship repair and all the things that we did and all the possibilities of the future and our ferry system. And, it's just great to see it coming together. And I think, bottom line is anything we can do to be supportive, we will certainly do. And, we owe you and so many of your partners that you showed on the screen a great debt of gratitude, because being part of the machine like that, it takes a lot of trust. That's just not putting your name on a thing. You've got to really make a commitment to make it work. And so that's what we're seeing. Open it up to the board for questions, comments.
I have a question. This is awesome. So pathways are great. I'm fully on board for whatever support anybody needs out there to give. And I know I've had some experience coming from the career I did in background, and specifically, I have a question around reentry. And you had mentioned in your presentation they have to have a secured security clearance for backgrounds and jobs. And I know some of the frustration that we hit in the pathways was, if somebody has made a mistake in the past and they have it on their background, is there a plan or a connection that you have where you're going to be able to work with somebody to get them through that type of thing? Obviously, if we're talking about reentry,
Sure. No, absolutely. The partnership with the Alameda County Probation Department, we're looking to expand to Contra Costa and also Solana counties. One thing that we need to stress that part of the impetus behind the TWIC project is those two individuals that have started during this period, they're going to be working with them to see if they can expunge those records that prevent them from getting that TWIC card. Right. And that will be the model going forward, working with them to remove those barriers.
I think that's all. That's what I kind of was wondering. And then lastly, one day with all this work being done, I'm hoping we can name a big breasty anchor with Bobby's name on it. Yeah. So thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, no questions. I just want to give my kudos to you guys. It has been amazing to work with you in this project and seeing how it's gaining momentum so much. And it's just been really exciting to see the different opportunities. We got to go tour Fremont High School and see what they were doing with their construction and engineering career pathways. And I would love to see maritime industry pathways in the schools. So I'm glad that you are also thinking about our youth before 18 in the future.
Thank you. Jessica?
Very brief. I'm bored by the level of commitment and dedication and continued inspiration to create this movement that you're in the midst of, and just huge congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other members of the board? Are there members of the public who'd like to comment, ask questions?
No one has signed up to speak.
Nobody signed up. Well, again, thank you very much for, the extensive explanation of your accomplishments to date, and the recognition by the grantor community to support what you're doing. And it only makes sense that they would. And we want to be part of that, obviously, and look forward to working with you on it. So thank you for taking the time, Bobby and Sal, to come by today and talk to us about it. Let's go to item number 10, agency branding.
Thank you, Chair Wonderman. I'm gonna go back here a little bit. Yeah, so I think the entire universe of people who care about this topic are probably in this room or tuning in via Zoom. We're going to talk about is how we refer to ourselves and how we ask others to refer to us. Obviously, statutorily, we are the San Francisco Bay Area Water Emergency Transportation Authority, many words, a short acronym that we use in some cases. Certainly in this setting, we talk about WETA a lot at a staff level. Our business cards, have WETA on them. Our email addresses are at watertransit.org. There's a lot of use of WETA. If I never have to answer the question, do you pronounce it WETA or WETA at the beginning of a Zoom meeting, again, it'll be too soon. But obviously that creates a lot of confusion because the broader public in the Bay Area and beyond knows us as San Francisco Bay Ferry. We have a very distinct logo, a great icon with good brand awareness. Obviously, passenger sentiment and just general sentiment about our brand is very strong, as evidenced by our survey in 2022. We'd like to lean into that a little bit more. And so this is something that's come up a few different times at the board level that we wanted to talk about. And so we have some ideas and some thoughts on how we can shift it to be a little less unclear, a little more clear for not just the general public, but for stakeholders in Sacramento and DC. We know that sometimes questions come up that are solely focused on our water emergency transportation part of our mission, because that's the name of our agency to them. When we really want to talk about what we do on a day-to-day basis, which is carry people across the bay on beautiful ferries. This is not a unique situation for us. The Bay Area has transit agencies called the Central Contra Costa Transit Authority and the East Contra Costa Transit Authority and the Peninsula Corridor Joint Powers Board. No one knows who those are unless you're deep in the transit world. That's County Connection, Tri-Delta Transit, and of course, Caltrain. So this is not a unique situation to us. It's unique in a way that we've self-identified as WETA for as long as we have, more than a decade now. And I think our proposal here, which is an informational item, we really want to get your feedback. And so we've developed a sort of plan, so to speak, to get your reactions to it before we put it into place going forward. There's really three key items. One thing, we did consider super briefly after talking to both our legal counsel and our CFO, what would it take to legally change our name to San Francisco Bay Ferry? And the hurdles that would take, the political capital that it would take to get a bill through Sacramento to do something like that when we could focus our efforts on much more impactful items, just seemed to be a non-starter from the beginning. And so the idea here is to strengthen the San Francisco Bay Ferry brand as it pertains to actual agency staff and how we're known across the region. So there's really three things that we would like your feedback on. One is that we start using the SF Bay Ferry brand in nearly all public communication, including with stakeholders. So that means we self-identify as SF Bay Ferry going forward. This slide will not have the WETA logo. It'll have the little boat icon. Instead, for example, our business cards would change, our email addresses would change. I've already talked to you about a plan to take the two separate websites that we currently have, San Francisco Bay Ferry website and the WETA website, and just bring that content that's on the WETA subdomain into the San Francisco Bay Ferry website. And so that would be really how we identify with ourselves. The second step would be how we ask our stakeholders and our partners out in the communities to identify us. So this would be ensuring that when we're discussed at, say, a MTC commission meeting by anyone, we're referred to as San Francisco Bay Ferry. Make sure all the charts and documents out there are contracts. As legal counsel has raised a great point that we can change language in our standard contract template to where it, instead of saying WETA throughout the contract, we can identify WETA, also known as San Francisco Bay Ferry. That'll help shipyards, some of the other partners that we have throughout the nation really will help associate us as being San Francisco Bay Ferry. And I think it'll just make everything much clearer for everyone else out there. And then the third thing, which is relevant today specifically, is to develop a branding guide for pilot services. So in the future, we may not always operate our services on vessels that say SF Bay Ferry across the front. There might be a big yellow boat that's operating our service, or a very small hydrogen powered blue boat that may not conform to our general branding. How do we identify those? And so our thought is to identify those as a pilot of San Francisco Bay Ferry. There may be some pilot partnerships that require a second party or a third party to also be identified as a part of that, but we can build out a plan and template, make that clear that even if a boat is not, doesn't look like a San Francisco Bay Ferry, it's still identified as part of our service. So, those are the three things that we just sort of wanted to introduce for conversation and feedback, and then with your blessing, we would get started on putting that all to paper.
Thanks, Tom. You know, a couple of questions. First of all, I think it's the right thing to do. WETA, which might have been my idea, wasn't really my idea, but I pushed it, is a confusing term. And I know from, I don't know if Jessica, you went through this in your confirmation, but at least on the Senate confirmation, you know, all the questions I answered, and they were really good questions from the Senate staff. They were all about the emergency function, every one of them. And, you know, so we sort of led folks down that path. It's an important path, but it's not the only path. And I think SF Bay Ferry is a much better brand. It makes a lot of sense to do that. And as you said, you know, we're just really doing what other agencies sort of stuck in the same mud tend to do, is come up with a better brand. I was on capital projects. If we're building something, you know, would we be allowed to put a sign up that says, you know, a project of SF Bay Ferry, or, you know, would we have to kind of revert to this, or, you know, is there?
No, I think under what we've thought about and talked about internally, I think a project of SF Bay Ferry would be appropriate. You know, the Ron Cowan operations and maintenance facility has a WETA up there. I think that could be changed in the future to be, you know, this is the SF Bay Ferry Ron Cowan facility. So I think that could be an important way to just tie our infrastructure out in the world and the resources that we've brought to bear to back to the brand.
Excellent. I don't have any other questions. I think it's pretty straightforward. Other members of the board, comment, questions?
I think it's a great idea.
Unclear.
I would assume that most stakeholders agree that this is the right move, but are you aware of any stakeholders who would recommend shying away from making this change?
Great question. None that we've come across. We have talked internally. Lexi Matsui from our team has seen this happen in previous roles and had some experience with it. There needs to be a bit of an enforcement mechanism internally, and we have to decide how strict we're going to be internally on striking WETA from everything. And obviously, there'll be an education process with the public. I think we'll find a way to tie it with perhaps our website redesign launch to sort of have an inflection point where we make it clear to everyone else that we'd like to just be referred to as SF Ferry. I think if you went and talked to County Connection or Tri Delta Transit or even reviewed their documents, you'd find some spots here and there where it's still whatever those acronyms are. But hopefully less and less over time. And as more people, you know, come in, just general turnover in the industry, hopefully we could weed out the WETA.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly support this transition. When is the website launch?
We hope that next month we'll be asking your approval to award a contract. And so probably 6 to 8 months from there, we can get started on some of this stuff earlier. The PowerPoint template next month will not have this logo all over it.
Right, and the only thing that I would want as well is that we don't lose track of the E, And so on our about and mission statement, that it's abundantly clear that the function that we also serve in regards to emergency response.
That's a great point. We'll make sure that that's prioritized.
Thank you.
So that was going to be my point. I'm in favor of changing the name because I'm so very fatigued by the WETA conversation. Sounds like diapers to me. But I really want to be more informed on how we are not going to lose sight of our emergency response mission. There's, if you go back to any major emergency in the Bay, it has always been responded to by the Bay. And I served my time on the water, and there's not one time that we weren't 100% dependent on the ferry system. And that is still not well known, and to my level of satisfaction. Having the name WETA hasn't helped that by any means, and I still feel like we're falling short on getting that out. So when we come back in whatever month we come back in and look at the website, I really want to make sure that we talk at length about that. And I trust that we will. I'm not saying we won't, but I just want to be loud and clear on that.
Absolutely.
I don't want it to be too cutesy.
If I could just comment on that point and also share Pippin's Director Dew's comments that she texted to me. She had to leave, but she had similar comments that she supports the staff recommendation, but thinks it's incredibly important to retain emergency in the brand somehow. So it's especially as it's connected to future funding. And we've given that some thought. I think it's our responsibility now to think really carefully about how to incorporate our emergency response obligation and statutory authority into the SFA ferry brand, instead of doing the opposite and trying to incorporate our day-to-day ferry service into the emergency response brand, which we have inherited from our statutory authority.
I think that's really well said.
So we will make sure we do that on the website, in our messaging, talking very assertively about that responsibility and using it where it's going to be of benefit to us, pointing to it when there are funding opportunities that hopefully emerge that we can take advantage of.
Wonderful. Thank you for that.
Thanks. Other comments from the public? Yeah, I think it's about high time, on the officially changing the name, the legal change of the name. So I don't know what, I guess I don't know what would be involved in doing it. I think it would be not a great idea to go through a legislation to change the name when we could just change the name. At some point, we might want to go through legislation, back to the discussion we had earlier today about what is our organization's authority. At some point we might, we today in the consent calendar, we passed a fairly extensive book of legislative priorities and strategies. And, not among them, I don't think, was, consideration of imbuing us with additional powers. Might be more about protecting what we have, which is the conversation we had as well financially. But at some point, we might want to think about that. The original construct between on SB, what became SB 976, which one facet of that was to add the E, but it also, if anyone ever saw the original legislation, this system was basically in charge of everything in the Bay Area in that original legislation, and then it got whittled down pretty good, and still, gave us, I think, most of the authority that we sought, or some of it, maybe not most, but some of it. At some point, we might want to think about that and go back and consider, what is it that we're not supposed to be doing or could do that we're not empowered to do. And at that point, we might want to revisit the naming, because that would sort of be part of, not holistically the thing we would go for, but part of that. And, it's an excuse to get in front of the legislature and have, an opportunity to talk to the legislators about who we are, what we're doing, and if we're missing something. The original SB 976 of note had a significant amount of land use authority. around the area where terminals were, and that got stripped out. So, SF Bay Ferry and Development Authority, could be a good name too. But I don't think we're there yet, so we'll probably hold off on that, but if any other comments, thoughts about that? If not, let's go to the public comment on non-agenda items, number 11. Thank you, Thomas. Is that little notation presentations for February, is that anything, Melanie? On the bottom? Okay. So let's go to item 11. Are there is anyone wish to make us comment on something not on the agenda? Anyone on the Zoom? Could we adjourn the meeting in favor of the 49ers becoming Super Bowl champion? I'm the chair, I could do that. Can I do that? All right, let's adjourn the meeting in the hopes and prayers that our 49ers bring home a Super Bowl championship. Thank you all. What the heck?